We'll run out. I don't want to run out of time. And what have you been on to the luxury section?
No,
Amazon?
I do not need that. Stop. Okay. Are we live? Okay, we're live. All right. I had some technical difficulties. It was giving me an error message and I was trying to troubleshoot it. And in the meantime, looks like you saw my guest in the background and we were chatting about Amazon Prime and everything we wanted to buy that we don't need. Anyways, welcome back. It is Wednesday afternoon, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:02 Eastern Time. Thanks to technical difficulties. It is another beautiful but slightly humid evening rather, in Asheville today. But we needed it because, what's new in Asheville yesterday and today? Breaking news. We've had some rain. Yay. We did not have rain. I want to say probably good rain. 3 weeks, so maybe more. Our grass looks like straw. It's just awful. Everything is just so dry. We finally had rain yesterday evening, and almost exactly the same time today. We'll take it, but it is a little humid. I want to go to Sliding Rock tomorrow and cool off. If you don't know what Sliding Rock is, look it up. Sliding Rock, North Carolina, not Sliding Rock in Arizona. I've been to both. Our Sliding Rock is in Pisgah National Forest in Brevard. It is awesome. The water is nice and cold, very refreshing. So that's my plan for tomorrow. But today, I'm not here alone. I am here with Sabrina.West, who is with Guaranteed Rate and who is also a local lender. I'm going to put this slide again throughout our video today, our presentation today. I just wanted to give you a quick glance. But, I typically do not do this type of videos here on this channel anymore, at least. It's more about, what it's like to live here, stuff, what to do, what not to do, what to avoid, areas, towns, neighborhoods, blah, blah, blah. But it's been, rain is good thing. I love Lake Lure and plan to settle down there. Yes, I mean, listen, we were doing happy dance yesterday in the rain for just like a second, because then I realized it was lightning. And I was like, okay, but maybe we better go inside and not dance under a tree. And I just blow dried my hair yesterday morning, and I'm not sacrificing that because that's a lot of work for me personally. Where was I? Lake Lure. Yeah, Lake Lure is a great area. I included Lake Lure in some of my videos, but back to what I was talking about. I don't normally do this type of videos, right? But I've had so many people reach out to us, not just recently, but throughout the years, with who have good intentions, right? They want to move to the area, or they're already here, they want to buy a house, but they are not quite ready. Maybe they did their research about the area and they know what it's like to live here. They even know where they want to live, but they did not do this one crucial homework that is super important, that will make it or break it. And that is why I wanted to bring on Sabrina here today, because she is a true expert. She's just like me. She is a relocation expert, but in the lending world, and she's part of our team. I always talk about our team, and she is part of the team because, all other professionals who help the transaction make happen are part of the team. So thank you, Sabrina, for joining. I wanted to do a little icebreaker before we dive in, and ask you a few questions, lightning round, so to speak. Okay. How long have you been in Asheville?
Born and raised from here.
Wow. Born and
generations
raised.
After generations. Yep.
That is rare these days. Would you agree?
Oh yeah,
Most
yeah.
people are just like me, and a lot of people who are watching these videos, transplants. All right, great. What is your favorite place to go meet with people for business or I don't know, anything?
I would say philo or philo.
Philo?
Yeah,
Philo
philo.
is a what is it? What would you say?
It's
It's
a
like a
coffee
pastry
shop.
shop,
It's a
coffee
coffee
shop?
shop. It's a nice coffee shop, but they have like breakfast items, but then they have cocktails at like 4 with like tapas. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's in
like
East
in the
Asheville.
morning. Yeah, East Asheville.
Uh-huh. East Asheville. So as you might know, if you follow me for a while, you know East Asheville is probably my favorite part of town, although we do not live there currently. One day. All right, next
Mhm.
question. What is your favorite coffee shop?
Philo.
Philo.
Okay,
What
wait,
is
wait, wait. All day Darling Cafe.
yes, we just
Okay.
met the other day.
Yep.
Talking business. All Day Darling Cafe is in Munford.
Mhm.
So local, all of these places are local so far that she
Oh
mentioned.
yeah.
Munford Cafe, it's right at the entrance to Munford, right
Yeah.
after you pass the Chamber of Commerce and the Visitor Center. It's right there on the corner. It is hard to miss. It's great stuff. Great place, great food, great drinks. Amazing. All right. What is your favorite restaurant for dinner? Dinner time.
Uh, Wild Ginger.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
Wild Ginger.
That or
You know what?
131.
Okay, 131. Okay. I've been to
Yep.
131. To my shame, I've never been to Wild Ginger. Maybe we should go next time.
Really?
I know. Listen,
Okay.
in
South
my defense,
Asheville, it's in your woods.
in my defense, there's so many great local restaurants.
Oh
I
yeah.
have clients who move here, who, a lot of them who found me here through my videos, who come here, who move to the area, who move to Asheville or Hendersonville or wherever, and they they discover and they visit more restaurants that I do, because that's kind of part of people's itinerary, so to speak. They come to a new area and they want to try all the things, see what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
These days, I don't have as much time to try new things, and I'm a creature of habit. But that's a good point.
Well, that's
Okay.
why I like
All
those
right. If
places
any
because they're consistent. All those restaurants are
Yeah.
consistent.
Yes. Yep. And 131 Main is in Biltmore Park. Great
Mm-hmm.
restaurant to go for business lunch or dinner or with just friends. They have nice,
Mm-hmm.
comfortable booths, great food, lots of gluten-free options.
Yep.
If anybody is watching this right now or replay, if you want to put in the comments what your favorite, either coffee shop or I don't know, breakfast place, restaurant, what is your favorite place in Asheville? And last but not least, what is your favorite part of town?
East Asheville.
East Asheville.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Well,
Yes.
it's Oak area. So not complete east, not Black Mountain or Swananoa, but
Mm-hmm.
East 13. So you're 5 minutes from downtown, but the Hall Creek area, that's where I
And why is
grew up.
that? Oh, okay, that's where
Um,
you grew up.
it's where I grew up, but I just feel like you can get anywhere from Hall Creek area. Like you're not in Swananoa, you're not downtown, you're not north. I mean, so for me,
Right.
you can jump on the interstate and you can get anywhere in town really quickly. So that's my
Yes, and
favorite.
the interstate is right there. The entrance to
Mhm.
or the exit is right there.
Yeah.
Super convenient. I don't think I ever covered Oteen. It's an area that can be hard to explain. Would you say? Because it's
Oh
like
yeah,
this,
it's like the hidden
what's that
place.
meme?
Yeah, it's kind of hidden that people don't
Yeah,
realize there's so much back there. But I don't know, has
yeah,
that little bit of Asheville charm, but you don't have to be right in the middle of downtown, but you're close to
right.
everything.
And you get more for your money, which is nice. All right, if you're just joining, please put in the comments if you want to share where you're joining from. Maybe it's a state, country, I don't know, town, part of town. If you're here in Asheville, put it in the comments. Say hi. Also, ask questions along the way. Comments. If you disagree with anything, put it in the comments too. Okay, we are here to help you out and help everyone out. This is really because both me and Sabrina had so many clients with the same issue, and I feel like it needs to be said. Okay, so here is the scenario. I have somebody reach out and say, okay, we want to buy a house, and they start telling me about, hi, Jefferson, Georgia. All right, thank you for joining from all the way from Georgia. Thank you. We talk about different areas, we build some relationship, we talk, and then they start describing me the house of dreams, their criteria. We kind of start digging deeper, what they want, what is it that they're looking for, what are they looking for in the area, because the house is as important as the area or location, right? Surroundings. And then it comes time for me to ask, okay, so are you planning to buy a house with cash, or are you planning to get a loan? Oh, we're gonna get a loan, and our price range is this, or we want to, our price range, let's say $750,000. And I say, well, how did you determine that? Did you talk to a lender yet? Oh no, we did not talk to a lender yet, but we both have good jobs, and they tell me how much they make a year. And big pause. This means nothing to me as an agent, and I'm not even a lender. And Sabrina, I'll let you jump in here. I'm sure you had the same thing.
Yeah, often, like, I got a text while we were actually at breakfast the other morning. It was like, how much income do I need to get a $700,000 loan? Or do a $700,000 purchase? And I was like, well, it depends. Depends on your debt. It depends on how much down payment you're putting in. It depends on your credit score. It depends on, is it a primary residence, a secondary residence, investment residence, So there's so many factors that go into it, but I get those broad questions. And my response is, you do not want me to give you financial advice over text.
Right.
So, because sometimes people jump into that and then they're like, oh, I wouldn't really be earning and doing my job if I didn't go deeper than general.
It would be a huge disservice. It would be a huge disservice if you just try to give them an easy answer, right? Which is what a lot of people are looking for. They're looking for easy answer. And I get it. Speaking of Amazon, everyone wants answers like this, right? Speed.
Well,
check it out
we have
quickly.
Google you know what I mean? It's like we have so much information at our fingertips, but that doesn't make you an expert, right?
Right.
I hire a financial advisor or a CPA or a doctor, a specialist, for a reason, because that's what they do. Yeah. So you get specialists for a reason. So they do tons of them, right? You might buy how many houses in your lifetime? Some people, yes, a lot. Other people, it's twice, it's 3 times. You don't become an expert by Googling. So.
Right. So I'll let you, we're going to go back to you. I just wanted to say hi to Russell from sunny Florida. Thank you for joining in Hendersonville in 2 weeks. That's exciting. So you building a house? Is that what you're saying? Getting your CO? Let me know, which community is it? Or is it just outside of any community? I have somebody who is building a house in Fletcher. So hopefully we'll get a CO soon as well and get the inspections done and all that. But that's exciting. I know the feeling. All right. So, and on top of that, some people just tell me, and we have great credit score. We have great credit score. Our credit is great. Well, it's not just how much you make a year and your credit score and credit rate or credit history that goes into figuring out and unpeeling that onion. What are the things that you as a lender look into? What are can you break it down by, I don't know, 5 main words?
Yeah. So I always tell people, they're like, oh, I have tons of money in the bank, but I have no credit score, or I have a job, but I have no down payment, right? So lenders, there's 5 principles of lending, just standard, right? Credit tells us how you paid your bills into the past, right? What has your credit been like in the last 2 years? Obviously past that, but credit score tells us how you pay your bills. Second thing is income, ability to repay. It's great, but you've got to show that you have the ability to repay the loan, right? So that comes into like debt to income, things of that sort. Then loan to value. How much money do you have to put down? That tells us how much you are going to be, how much skin you have in the game, right? And then you have occupancy type, and then you have the type of collateral. So occupancy type is primary residence, secondary residence, investment property. All of those have different factors for a lender, because a lot of times if the bottom falls out, you might let go of your investment property before you would let go of your primary residence. And then the type of collateral, whether it's a manufactured home, a condo, a single family residence, all of those things matter. So those are the standard 5 principles of lending.
So in other words, what I tell people kind of in a more simple ways, just so that I can kind of warm them up for when they're going to talk to a lender, I tell them the lender doesn't, your income is great, right? It's great to have great income. Let's say, hypothetically, you make $1 million a year, but if you spend $950,000 out of that income, you do not qualify for anything, because that debt to income ratio is so high. That's not even realistic. You're not going to be able to afford to buy anything, not even a car, probably. So that's another thing, like that's what they look at, how much you make and how much you spend. And then so the next one is the job, right? The ability to repay the debt. So the lender these days, unlike 2007, 2008, and ask me how I know, because we bought a house in 2007.
No doc.
That was a wild story. I know. Where was I? Oh, employment history, or not just the employment history, what happened 2-3 years ago, what's been happening up until the purchase, but what's the projection into the future. So let's talk about that.
Like the market projection right now?
No, like employment, ability to repay the loan.
Yeah, so I always tell people, lenders look at 2 years into the past, and they want to see that you have had stable income for at least 2 years into the past. That's why self-employed sometimes have a little bit harder time, because if you start a business and you've only had it for a year, but maybe you had a good year, but 2 years gives you some stability, right? You always have an upstart to any kind of business. So that's why they require 2 years. But then we kind of look at, is your income looking to stay consistent for 3 years into the future? I always say 2 years in the past, 3 years in the future, right? That's what we use as a rule of thumb, especially with people who are qualifying with large amounts of assets, retirees, people who are relocating and retiring here. We might be able to qualify you on what we call asset depletion. So we're looking at how much money do you have in the bank that if could you pay your mortgage for the next 3 years if needed to be? So 2 years into the past, 3 years into the future is my rule of thumb.
And that was a good point about retirees, because we have a lot of people who come, especially like Henderson County, more so than Asheville, I would say. Although when I looked at demographics, similar. But anyways, retiree, because you have, a lot of people will be on a fixed income or whatnot, but also, a lot of people moving here, which means if you're not bringing your job with you, and that means usually, you work remotely, you can work anywhere in the world as long as you have internet. What is your plan? When, how are you going to keep working here and keep paying the bills? So what's the rule of thumb on that, Sabrina? Like switching jobs and stuff like that.
Yeah. So for instance, I get calls literally probably daily, and they're like, yeah, well, we're going to plan on relocating and we'll just get jobs when we get there. But this is a primary residence, right? So if you're buying something as a primary residence, you're telling a lender that you will, if you're self-employed or you have a job somewhere else, we're going, well, how are you going to do that job? Because if you're moving here as your primary residence, how are you going to do the job that's in Texas, right? The good thing is you know what? A lot of people work remote now, all due to, I mean, COVID, right? It used to not be as common. COVID hit and people work remote. So we're able to approve people off literally much more easy because of the fact that people work remotely all the time, or people travel with their jobs, right? You know, for instance, I have a client right now. They're a Olympic recruiting coach. They live in California, but they're an Olympic recruiting coach. And you're like, oh, well, they're a swim coach. They don't do anything. No, all they do is travel all around the world, recruiting, you know, so it is a little more complicated than that. You do have to get a letter from your employer saying that your job or working remotely doesn't negatively impact you. But I think it is easier now, but there is that question whether or not it's a primary residence or it's truly a second home or an investment property. Does that make sense?
And it makes sense to me. Let us know in the comments if it makes sense to you, everyone who's watching. If you have any questions or objections, if you disagree with anything or something is not clear, because, you know, sometimes we get carried away and start talking more like, you know, professional jargon, and sometimes it may fly just over people's heads. So put it in the comments. Don't be shy. And also put in the comments, say hi, where you're joining from, or if you're here already. And so also when it comes to jobs, when people, and I had people like that, I think I have clients currently like that who had a job. Let's say, hypothetically, they were a nurse in Florida, right? They move in here, they get in a loan, and they want or plan or are getting a job, let's say at Mission Hospital as a nurse.
Yep.
What's the requirement there?
So you can qualify with what we call future income, right? As long as you have an employment contract from Mission Hospital saying, this is your start date in 60 days, or this is my start date in 90 days. As long as you have what your income's going to be, we verify it with your human resources department, but we can use employment contracts to qualify you for what we call future income. So it's not like you have to move here and then buy the house. We have options to be able to buy the house, but you do have to have a job in place. That ability to repay.
And it needs to be the same type of job or in the same industry, or what's the, you know?
Well, I mean, we do look, I mean, if you, so that's a loaded question, right? All right. So if anybody has questions, please ask, because it is not cookie cutter. If I am a nurse and I'm moving into a nurse job and I was making an hourly wage and then I move into an hourly wage, right? I'm showing consistency into the past for 2 years. And then I'm showing that it's likely to continue in the same pattern, right? This much an hour, 40 hours a week. But say you're a bartender, right? Say you're a bartender in Florida, and then you decide, okay, I'm going to start in the same industry at ℍ𝕬ℎ, right? And I'm going to have a base, and then I'm going to have tips. In that case, it would not be the same type. The reason is because we know how you performed at that restaurant in Florida, but it's what we call variable income. So we don't know what those tips are going to be like at your new position.
Right.
So it's not cookie cutter. Now, if you're going salary to salary job, it's very easy, right?
But it also needs to be in the same kind of industry, right? Like if I was a salaried, hypothetically, lawyer or a paralegal in Florida, and I decide to be a nurse here in Asheville, I would need 2 years of.
You would need 2 years of in the same line of work. But, you know, a lot of times people don't realize that, like, you might be a customer service rep of some sort or a sales rep for a roofing company. But then you're going into maybe you go into medical sales, right? But you're going salary to salary, right? And you're still in sales. even though you're in two different industries, you're in
Okay.
the same type of job. Does that make sense?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
It
that's
makes
why
sense.
you have to have an expert, because it's got to be able to make sense in that kind of line of work. I have people ask me all the time. They're like, "Well, we want to buy before we think." I said, "Well, then you need to get a W-2 salary job."
Mm-hmm.
So
What's another example? I want to ask you like about this because Asheville has such a big medical presence, so there's a lot
yep,
of people who don't necessarily move here to build their career in medical field, but that's an
yep,
opportunity to find a job in the area besides hospitality and tourism industry.
hmm
um, there are people like nurses, again going back to nurses, there are travel nurses versus regular hourly nurses. Is that different?
it is. The reason is because travel nursing became popular during COVID, and what happens
Mm-hmm.
is they stopped working for their employers, and then they started working for these companies that popped up that just placed them on short-term contracts. Well,
Mm-hmm.
what did that just do, right? So if you've worked for Mission Hospital for 2 years, and then you go work for Hershey Medical in Pennsylvania, and you've got a set you're employed by them, they're telling you this is what it's going to be, right? This is your hourly rate, this is the number of hours you work. When you're travel nursing, we don't know. We get your contract and we don't know if you're on there for 3 months, we don't know if you're on 6 months, we don't know if you're on 9 months. And now what does that mean? It goes back to it's variable income, because
Mm-hmm.
it's varying. So we kind of look at it like self-employment. So we look at a 2-year history of your variable income and your different contracts, and to see if you're earning that same type of income.
Mm-hmm. And the travel nurse's income is not, you can't even count the whole thing. Like just because they're making so much, because a lot of that is allocated, supposed to be allocated to what, housing and travel.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Yeah.
makes you feel and sound like you're making a lot of money, and which you are, right?
Yeah.
But you can't count or take into account the whole amount.
Yes, you cannot.
Okay.
So
Okay. Anybody has any questions? Put them in the comments now. Well, Sabrina is here live. And so anything else you want to add about any of those things before we go on?
yeah, I mean, let's use my industry and your industry for
Mm-hmm.
instance, right? So you're a real estate agent, and say you decide to move to Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
That's a new market area for you, right? You
Mm-hmm.
physically have to be there, right?
Right.
Unless you have a team, right, that you establish somewhere. How do we know that you can continue to do real estate in the same market area? I
Mm-hmm.
get that a lot. But for me, right, I do majority of my business through online and in-person referrals, but I can do most of my job online, right?
Right.
So I can still keep most of my referral sources and my people in another city if I relocate. Does that kind of give you an idea of, it really does vary, and it's your loan officer's job to really try to make sense of it and create a show stability in your income, as well as that it's not going to affect the lender in the future to the ability to repay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to what some of the people, do for jobs. Have they had any of those issues?
Yeah. I never had anybody have an issue personally, because I always try to, we're not going to make an offer on anything. A lot of times we're not going to even look at anything until we figure out how you're going to pay for it. Do you have any arrangements? Have you talked to a lender? You don't have to get pre-approved, but I always tell people you can talk to a lender a year ahead,
Uh-huh.
because there's so much that goes into it. You might not realize that you might need to do some homework.
Well, I think it's confusing for people because everyone goes online and they're like, oh, well, Rocket just gave me, or for whatever online
Yeah.
lender says, hey, I can get a pre-approval. They give me a pre-approval. Well, by law, if you apply for a loan and you tell us something on your application in your credit, you can get a pre-approval because it's based upon what you tell us. There's little tiny disclosure at the bottom of those pre-approvals that said that you have to prove what's on your application. So it can be really, I think, I don't know. I think it's misleading in general because too many people think, oh, well, I got pre-approved. And then that's when all of a sudden they call me, the local lender, because they got this letter. And then they're like, oh, I can't qualify. And that rate on that letter isn't what they said it was going to be.
And that goes back to the fact that a lot of people, a lot of times these days, and I mean, I'm not an exclusion. I look for easy ways out too, in many different places, in many different instances. Amazon, DoorDash. I mean, I need something quickly. I need something now. I'm not going to wait a week for delivery, right? Same here. But this time around, we're talking about your finances. You're not buying a pair of gloves. You're not buying a pair of shoes. This is most people's biggest purchase. Most people's. And so it's not the time to cut corners. It's not the time to be like, okay, well, they gave me green light. Let's go shop for a house. What's going to happen is that it's going to lead to disappointment, to frustration, to a lot of stress. If you decide to make an offer with that pre-qualification letter, that means really nothing. Of course, I won't submit an offer with pre-qualification letter. It has to be a pre-approval letter. Sorry. But again, it would be a huge disservice if I did. If I did let my clients put deposits on the line. So that's money out of your pocket up front. One of them is non-refundable. Start paying for inspections. And that can be, depending on the property, it can be $1,000, $2,000 easily. I'm not going to let that happen until we know that you are good to go. And then even then, you have to educate people on what's going to happen once you go on the contract. Let's say you are golden, like you good to go, green light. You got pre-approved, everything is perfect. And then they got carried away and so you start dreaming. I have clients right now, we're having a walkthrough next week. He was just texting me. He's like, now can I get excited? I said, I think so. I think now you can get excited. But I was warning them along the way, and all other people, not to do certain things when you are going through a lender.
It's not done until it's done.
Right. And it's not done until it's done. And I know you get excited and you start thinking about, oh, I want a couch, I want some furniture, or maybe I want a new car because you move into the mountains and now you realize that you're going to need a all-wheel drive or a Subaru. These are the things not to do. Am I right?
Yes, you're very correct.
What else can mess up the whole application process and loan approval?
Doing that. I had a mutual client who went and bought $12,000 worth of furniture a week before their closing, and it popped up on their credit and almost killed their transaction. So, the other big things is people they'll qualify with their job and they're like, oh, by the way, I'm going to move jobs. And then we call to do a verbal verification. All lenders call and do a verbal verification, usually 24 to 48 hours before you're closing. And they're like, oh yeah, they put their notice in 2 weeks ago. Right. So that's one of the big things. I think the biggest things are people going and spending, I kind of put my people in that fear factor mode. I'm like, even if you want to do it, all I need you to do is call and check with me. Just call and run it through me, and I will tell you, yes, you're good to go, or you're not good to go.
Right.
We lenders realize that you still have to live your life. People are sometimes afraid to even spend any money, and they're like, I'm just spending cash for for 30 days, and I'm like, you can spend money. It's just we realize you still do. It's just the big purchases. It's the, we're looking at debt to income. We don't want to know that you're going out and you're going to buy a new car and you're trading in this and you're getting a whole new house full of furniture, because we have to consider that, a liability, unfortunately.
Right. Can we talk a little bit about the closing costs?
Oh,
just the ballpark.
You're just making lending so fun today. Lending so fun.
That's a very common question.
It is. So closing costs, honestly, people, every time someone shops, right? Everybody shops around and they're like, oh, well, this lender fee is this. Typically, for every lender, there is a cost to do a loan, right? If you walk in the door, we pull your credit, we do data verification information, we're double checking your social security number so there's not anybody stealing your social security number. There's all these costs that are associated, which is the standard practice of being able to break even on a loan. And those are usually like your application fee, your lender commitment fees, right? And then your appraisal fees. Those are just basics that the lender doesn't make any money until you close the loan, okay? So I always tell people when they're shopping, shop everything in what we call Section A, okay? So you're looking at those fixed costs, okay? So when you're looking at the application fee, the lender commitment fee, you'll see some companies that will charge, flood certification, tax service, and all these other fees, and it can become very, very confusing. And then others won't charge it that way. But typically, most of your closing costs are going to be your lender commitment fees, your escrow setup, that's taxes and insurance. That's not true closing costs. Those are really costs that we're paying your insurance and your taxes to set up for the future. Does that make sense? And then you have your attorney fees. So those are all items that what we call you can shop for, your homeowner's insurance, your attorney, fees in North Carolina attorney. In other states, it's, title insurance, those kinds of things. So company. Closing costs, depending on your loan amount, can range, anywhere from $3,000 up to $8,000, $9,000. It depends on how big your loan is.
Okay, so it depends on the loan amount.
It does.
Okay. All right. Anybody has any questions about that? Put in the comments. And of course, you can ask questions if you are watching replay. Sabrina's contact information is right here. You can reach out to her directly if you have any questions. She's so great about educating people, and not just consumers, but us as realtors. She comes to a lot of our meetings, company meetings, and educates us. Because there's just so many things and so many variables, so many little details, depending on the type of the loan and type of residency and blah, blah, blah. There's just so many things, there's no way. And I feel like I shouldn't need to remember all the details. I can be a source of the source and do good service to people by be a source of the source. Yeah. All right. So with that, I think a lot of people this past, year and a half, year and a half, it's half of the year of this year, have had this big thing on their mind that stopped them from moving forward, from buying a house. And that is, drum roll, interest rates. I know. Okay. We were hoping they would start dropping them, March, April, May?
Yeah.
It's now July. What's the prediction? Is there hope?
Well, I kind of knew that they weren't going to drop them. And only because you can't get inflation under control and get affordable housing back in line. If you all of a sudden drop the interest rates, what happens? Everybody's like, ooh, money to spend. And then the markets, we don't have enough supply in the market. Okay. So you have a supply and demand problem. We don't have enough supply. So they drop the interest rates. All of a sudden, everybody comes, going for the same property. And guess what? Prices go up. Okay.
Right.
So I kind of knew that they weren't going to. They're going to drag this out, right? Because they've got to create a new norm, right? So I do think that they will do a rate cut come September or October. They're calling for about what we call 50 basis points. In your world, it's a half a percent interest rate cut. We're already starting to. I know it doesn't seem a lot.
Yeah.
But I think people forget sometimes that not even, 6 years ago, interest rates were at 6. 6 years
Really?
ago, yeah, they were ranging in the high 5s, low 6s. It was like 6.5 years ago. They were in the higher range. The fact that we had 2s and 3s really hasn't ever happened. So I think that's what's created this place, right? And of course you needed those 2s and 3s, but in the scheme of things, it gave people more spending, and now everybody runs up credit cards instead. There's a whole cycle to it. But
Right.
I think they'll cut interest rates. I mean, me personally, I don't think you should wait if you're looking to buy. I don't think you should wait for interest rates to come down, because we do have a supply and demand issue.
That was going to be my final question to you. When do you think is a good time to buy a house?
I think it depends on where you're at in your life. It's very, very individualized process. I tell people, stop trying to guess the market. Where are you at in your life? If it's time to retire, you're going to retire. If it's time to grow your family, you might be a person who graduated college and started out with, this great salary, and you might be on the incline to your income, right? Versus somebody else might have had a divorce or something of that sort. Everyone is at a different place in their life, and you don't know what you can and cannot afford and what's good for you until you talk to somebody that looks at your specific situation. Do not try to guess the market. Don't try to, educate yourself. There's great tools out there, but talk to somebody who actually listens to you and tries to come up with where you're at in your life, because there are no two people the same. Well,
Right.
there are, but, they're identical, but they still probably have different finances.
Right. Yes. That's what I kind of try to explain people too. And, of course, a lot of people, especially this past year, have been, on the fence. And I did have a couple people reach out to me after a year because they wanted to put everything on hold last year. And they said that, well, it looks like we're not going to be able to buy in Asheville anymore, in the Asheville area, because prices went up so much. We are outpriced for what we want.
Yes and no.
It depends on your criteria and how much you want for your money, blah, blah, blah. But that's what they told me. And I know in their situation, yes, you should have bought a year and a half ago and not wait for interest rates to drop, because you can refinance, you can change the interest rate. And of course, all these conditions apply.
Yes.
Employment, all those factors that Sabrina was talking about in the beginning of this video. You cannot change the price.
Nope.
Yes, we have a lot of price reductions, and that creates an illusion of the market is crashing or it's going to be a great buyer's market.
No.
Nope. It's not. And I did talk about it in my last live video, if you want to refer back to it. So, it's all individual approach. And that's what we do as me as an agent, Sabrina as a lender. We're not big box store companies type of thing, where it's like, okay, you fill out application and off you go with the paper. Because we care about building relationship with people. And that's what I tell people. I'm so honest, and I sometimes shoot myself in the foot by talking people out of houses. But my thing is that at the end of transaction, I want to
Yeah.
be, if not friends, I want to be at least friendly with you. And if
Mhm.
I knew that something was up, or something like there was a red flag or something, and I didn't bring it up, I know for a fact we're not going to be friends or friendly.
Mhm.
And that's not what I want to do. And I know Sabrina is that way too.
Yeah.
So with that, Sabrina, do you want to add anything else? Any last piece of advice to people? Anything? Throw it out.
I
Say it like it is. Don't sugarcoat it.
um, your lender is only as good as the information that they receive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's my big thing. So if you don't tell us the story and you're not honest with the story, and you don't tell us where, sometimes people come in and try to tell us all the great things and things of that sort. Sometimes you got to get into the details of, what your true budget is. Look at the reality for yourself, be honest with your loan officer, and ultimately they'll be able to put you in the right place. And if they're not, then they're the wrong person for you. You've got to find somebody who listens to where you're at and doesn't just look at your, documents, but knows how to guide you. Whether it's now, you might not be able to buy a house now, but it might be 6 months from now. It might be 3 months from now, but we're only as good as the information we receive. So sometimes you just got to lay it on the table. As much as pride hurts, sometimes you just got to tell us.
Yes. And from my experience, and I'm sure you, 100% for you too, you cannot lie to a lender. They will find out. They're like CIA. They will know
No,
everything. There's no point. There's no
you got
point,
to.
like,
There's not. We
yeah,
can see where you eat.
right, right,
We see
right.
your base
So
payment. So I always say, just be honest on the upfront. You're going to get a lot further, and you're going to get to the end a lot quicker if you just tell us the truth at the beginning.
yeah, swallow your pride. It's kind of like
Mhm.
going to certain doctors, just like suck it up, just lay it all
Yeah.
out.
Yes, I
It
eat
is
a
what
lot
it
of
is.
sugar.
Right. All right. If nobody has any questions, we're gonna wrap this up and let us go back to our families and dinner time and all that. And if you're watching the replay, if you have any comments, questions, put them in the comments. This is Sabrina's contact information, email, and I'm gonna put it in the description of the video as well so that you can access it easier. Reach out if you have any questions. If you need help relocating to the Asheville area, my team and I are here for you, and Sabrina is here for all of your lending needs. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
All right.